Most gardeners have had that moment of disappointment when good intentions backfire. You feed the soil, expecting healthier growth, and instead plants yellow, wilt, or explode into weak, floppy growth that never quite recovers. That frustration is not new, but the solution is old. Older than packaged fertilizers, older than nutrient charts, and older than the idea that plants need to be fed at all. There was once a soil feeding method so gentle it almost disappeared because it didn't act fast enough to impress. It didn't scorch roots, didn't spike growth, and didn't demand constant reapplication. Old gardeners trusted it because it worked slowly, predictably, and safely. This is the lost method that fed soil without ever burning plants. And once you understand it, you'll see why modern soil problems are often self-inflicted. Old gardeners fed the soil environment rather than delivering nutrients directly. The core of this lost method was simple but radical by today's standards. Instead of adding nutrients in concentrated form, old gardeners focused on creating the conditions where nutrients could be released naturally. They fed microbes, moisture balance, and soil structure rather than plants themselves. Materials were added that microbes could digest gradually, allowing nutrients to appear in forms plants could access only when they needed them. Because nothing was forced, roots were never overwhelmed. Plants grew in step with soil biology, not ahead of it. This approach eliminated the risk of nutrient burn because nutrients were never present in excess at any one time. One reason this method never burned plants is that it relied on incomplete decomposition happening in the soil itself. Organic matter was added in forms that still required biological work. As microbes broke it down, nutrients were released at the pace of microbial activity, which is naturally regulated by temperature, moisture, and oxygen. If conditions were poor, decomposition slowed. If plants were dormant, microbes slowed too. This built-in braking system prevented nutrient surges. Modern fertilizers bypass this entirely, delivering nutrients whether plants are ready or not. Old soil feeding respected timing rather than fighting it. Today's feeding advice obsesses over nitrogen, but old gardeners understood that carbon controlled everything. High-carbon materials moderated nutrient release and prevented sudden availability. Leaves, straw, stems, woodier compost, and aged plant matter were used deliberately because they demanded microbial effort before releasing nutrients. That effort tied up excess nitrogen temporarily, preventing burn, then released it slowly later. This is why old gardens rarely showed signs of nutrient shock, even when organic matter was added generously. Carbon acted as a buffer, smoothing the entire feeding process. Another key reason this method didn't burn plants is that nutrients weren't concentrated at the root zone. Organic matter was spread broadly and lightly, encouraging roots to explore rather than sit in a nutrient-rich pocket. When roots grow through soil to access nutrition, they become more resilient and efficient. This also reduces the risk of root damage, since no single area becomes chemically intense. Old gardeners unintentionally trained plants to be tougher by making nutrients something roots had to work for. This feeding method worked hand in hand with moisture management. Organic matter improved soil's ability to hold water without becoming waterlogged. Stable moisture keeps microbial activity consistent, which keeps nutrient release consistent. Dry soil shuts microbes down, while overly wet soil suffocates them. Old gardens balanced this naturally through organic inputs rather than irrigation tricks. Because nutrients were released only when moisture levels were suitable, plants never experienced the sudden uptake that leads to burn or stress. Herbs, seedlings and perennial plants benefited enormously from this approach. These plants are particularly sensitive to excess feeding. When nutrients arrive too quickly, they produce weak tissue and lose essential oils, flavor or resilience. The lost soil feeding method encouraged compact growth, stronger cell walls and deeper root systems. Plants matured slowly, but they lived longer and resisted disease better. This is why older gardens often had herbs that survived for years with minimal intervention. As gardening became commercialized, patience was replaced with precision. Nutrient numbers, fast results, and visible growth became the goal. The problem is that soil biology cannot be rushed without consequences. Chemical and even concentrated organic fertilizers removed the safety net built into slow decomposition. Burn became a risk not because gardeners became careless, but because the system itself lost its buffers. The lost method wasn't inefficient, it was preventative. Reviving this soil-feeding approach means, shifting your mindset. Focus on adding organic matter that still needs work, rather than finished products that are already spent. Apply lightly and regularly instead of heavily and occasionally. Let soil organisms decide when nutrients are released. Avoid mixing multiple strong inputs at once. Most importantly, observe plant response over weeks, not days. When growth feels calm and steady rather than explosive, the system is working. Gardens fed this way don't peak and crash. They improve. Each season leaves behind better structure, more microbial life, and a deeper nutrient reserve. Plants adapt to the soil rather than being pushed beyond it. Burn becomes almost impossible because nothing is ever forced. This is why old gardens often seemed low maintenance despite producing abundantly. The soil was doing the work quietly, exactly as it was designed to. If this helped you rethink how soil should be fed, do consider subscribing for more practical soil-first gardening knowledge that actually holds up over time. Share this with someone who keeps fighting plant burn despite doing everything right. Sometimes the solution isn't more control. It's returning to methods that trusted the soil to lead.